Jeremy. Your parents are waiting for you up front. The kid stood up. But first, she said. I think you owe Mrs. Grange an apology for lying and putting her in an awkward position. Yeah, that tracked. Even acquitting me, Brolish was gonna throw shade. Head bowed, Jeremy muttered out the barest of apology. I'm sorry, Look at me, Grange commanded. She was using her teacher voice, that tone that only the truest Askikas, rarely recorded and impossible to put into words. Jeremy lifted his head. You owe Mr. Gibson an apology, too. Do I have to? Yes. It was both who spoke up. Because of your story, Mr. Gibson had to wait in the clinic all day and Mrs. Brolish had to pay for a sub. I caught the twinkle in Mrs. Both's eye. The kid pivoted and gave more of the same half-assed apology. I'm sorry, Mr. Gibson. I'm sorry, Mrs. Brolish. Mrs. Brolish reached out and took his hand. Come along, Jeremy. Your parents are waiting for you out front. Do I have to hold your hand? The little asshole whined. After what you did, be glad that's all you have to do. Mrs. Brolish said, sternly. Your parents may decide that you have to visit the clinic for a few days. The look of dread in Jeremy's eyes was palpable and sweet. I hoped his parents wouldn't give him that most ironic and Amazonian of punishments, but I wasn't going to shed any tears if they did. The principal turned around and addressed us. Ladies and sir, she said. I'll be right back. Please wait for me and we'll finish this right up. Both, Janet, myself. The three of us all smiled and flashed thumbs up at each other. I was almost done. Almost free. We were grinning like idiots up until the moment the office door reopened and Mrs. Brolish took her seat. Just a few more things and we can put this behind us. It was back to business. Mrs. Both, thank you for stepping up like you did. Happy to do my part, Mrs. Both said. She looked at me and explained. The substitute that was hired to watch your room switched to watching Mrs. Grange's class after she read the essays and brought Jeremy here. Mrs. Zoj and I merged our class with yours and gave Tanya a hand.